The PlayStation 3 is home to some of the best video games of the 7th generation. There are so many classics and hidden gems on the console that it would be a shame to never play a lot of these games ever again. However, one can imagine how much of a hassle it can be when trying to find and plug up your old console. So when Sony announced that the PlayStation 5 will soon have backwards compatibility with the PlayStation 3, I started dancing around the house like a goddamn fool in excitement. I can finally play some of these games with ease. Don't get me wrong, I love playing my games on original hardware, but you can't beat the convenience of playing older games on a modern console. Having not only PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 games available upon starting up my console, along with PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 2 games, is like a dream come true. Unfortunately, the library is most definitely going to be limited, so I wanted to talk about a few games I think should be backwards compatible on the PlayStation 5. Now, over the past couple of years, we've seen a plethora of Super Smash Bros. Clones available on the PlayStation 5. We've gotten Brawlhalla, Multiverses, This Abomination, and the games range in quality from "this game is really fun to play with the boys" to "why did I waste my money on this piece of shit?" But regardless of what your preferred Super Smash Bros. Clone is, it's undeniable that all these games relatively feel the same. Not exactly the control, but more so the gameplay loop. Hit your opponent enough times to send them flying out of the arena. It's fun, but lacking enough personality to really keep me engaged. Hell, if I want to knock my opponent off the screen, why not just play Super Smash Bros.? And for that reason, I don't really find myself coming back to Brawlhalla too much, because as fine-tuned as this free-to-play game is, it's not Super Smash Bros. But a little over a decade ago, Sony made its own first-party Super Smash Bros. Clone called PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, and I gotta say, this game is pretty fucking fun. PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale is the first game I really want to see become backwards compatible on the PlayStation 5. Honestly, I think this game needs some more love and a second chance. I mean, who isn't interested in seeing a cast of Sony characters duke it out in a platform fighter? Come on, we got Kratos up in this bitch. We got Ratchet and Clank up in this bitch. Nathan Drake and Jak and Daxter all ready to throw hands with some not first party Sony characters. I can't lie, the character roster is a little rough around the edges. However, what sticks out to me the most is that the game isn't just a copy-paste of Super Smash Bros. As you see, the objective isn't to knock your opponent off the screen, but to flat out annihilate them. You do this by building up a meter up to 3 levels that once full, you can release a super attack. And believe it or not, that's enough fresh air to keep me coming back, because it's a platform fighter that plays differently than Super Smash Bros. And all the others. PlayStation All-Stars feels more like a party game than a competitive one. The game is pretty unique in that aspect, and I think that contrast gives it enough of an edge as opposed to the others. We need more casual games to be able to play with friends on game night, and to be quite frank, sometimes Super Smash Bros. Gets a little bit too competitive. And I will admit, sometimes casuals and even myself don't feel like having to try so hard in their platform fighter. So the Super Smash Bros. Clone PlayStation All-Stars is a game we need to have backwards compatible on the PlayStation 5. Speaking of clones, do you remember in the late 2000s and early 2010s when every game was a God of War clone? Like, there were so many of them, they were everywhere. As an advocate for hack and slash games, I believe most of these games were actually pretty decent. While they might not have been super original, they typically were a great time to play through, just a few times. But the king of God of War clones, in my opinion, is none other than Dante's Inferno. Dante's Inferno is the second game I really want to see backwards compatible on the PlayStation 5. This game is such a phenomenal experience, and for lack of a better way of explaining it, this game is just super polished. One of the main issues with other God of War clones stem from a few subtle nuances. These games suffer from janky ass controls, being super generic, or just being all out of place. Whereas Dante's Inferno is a pretty great journey from start to finish. This is because the combat is amazing. Slicing through hordes of different demons with Dante's scythe is so satisfying. You rip through these demons like fucking butter. I feel like I'm the Doomslayer carrying a scythe, and I'm telling you, this game is just flat out amazing. I'm honestly surprised that this game hasn't gotten a remaster yet. I mean, they're remaking Lollipop Chainsaw, and that's a pretty great game as well. I think Lollipop Chainsaw is a very fun hack and slash game, but Dante's Inferno is ultimately the better game, so if they aren't going to remake the game, at the very least, we should be able to play it through the Ps5's backwards compatibility feature. Currently, the PlayStation 5 is a pretty decent console to own, if you like Soulsborne games. However, if you are a platform fanatic, I've got some rough news for you, buddy. The PlayStation 5 is heavily lacking in the platform department. which really sucks because modern 2D and modern 3D platformers have the potential to be the best that they have ever been. I mean, look at Astrobot that's coming out later this year. This game looks phenomenal, but aside from that, virtually any platforming action I want is probably going to come from the Switch. And that's why I want to see Rayman Origins backwards compatible on the PlayStation 5. Rayman Origins is one of the best platformers that I've ever played. I'm not joking. If there's going to be any 2D platformer that is backwards compatible on the PlayStation 5, it has to be this game. This game is so beautifully crafted and polished. I'm talking about every single level in this game is great. They are super vibrant, offer fun and unique platforming challenges, and are all completely complemented by the game's super tight control. Go as far as to say that Rayman Origins is better than the new Super Mario Bros. Games, just off of how creative and original the games are. The level design really is a work of art in this game, and going for 100% completion isn't a complete snooze fest. I would argue that it's actually worth your time too. Remember when games would reward you for your hard work for 100% completion with an extra level? Yeah, Rayman Origins rewards your efforts by adding a secret level to the game. And man, this level is tough as monkey shit. This is definitely going to test your skills of the game to the maximum, but the level is super fun and extremely satisfying once you finally get it down, concluding a wonderful experience to a remarkable game. For me, it's been a really long time since I've fully played through Rayman Origins, and I would love an excuse to re-experience this game. Now, one of my favorite aspects of the 7th generation library games is the creativity. This is a time when studios were still attempting to reinvent the formula for certain genres, and experimenting was still super prominent. I remember back in the day, I could go to GameStop with just like $30 and buy 2 used games I had never heard of before, and lo and behold, you found 2 hidden gems. This gave us a plethora of great under-the-radar titles, one of them being Split Second. Split Second is a phenomenal racing game and the 4th game I want to see backwards compatible. It's an arcade racer similar to Burnout with its own unique spin. Each race is rigged with a variety of different traps around the race that players can manipulate to wreck their opponents or alter the route of the stage. This works so well because every single race is extremely intense because the tides can always turn at any moment, forcing players to consistently be on their A game, and if not, well, get wrecked, son! I honestly wish that Split Second got more love at the time of its release. I mean, it is a little rough around the edges, like sometimes the collision detection gets a little janky, and the game may not have the greatest selection of cars to drive. However, it is such a unique racing game that I feel as though it's not only worth a try, but also deserves a sequel. I mean, come on, did you play the first Titanfall? That game had like 10 guns and 3 Titans, but it was a super fun first-person shooter that created a wonderful foundation to be built upon. So then, when they made Titanfall 2, it was perfect. I'm talking about perfect. Peak first-person shooter. And they could have done the same thing with Split Second. The idea is there, the foundation was built, they just needed to build upon it. I don't know if it's just me, but recently I feel like Mortal Kombat hasn't really hit in a while. I'm not referring to Mortal Kombat 1, I don't have any experience with the game, but when I'm trying to go back to either Mortal Kombat 11 and even 10, playing them, they just aren't as fun or as exciting as they used to be. And you might go, well, no shit, the game is old. But that's a bunch of baloney. Have you ever met a Sonic fan? Starting up Sonic Adventure 2 is exciting every single time you do it, even after 20 plus years. So what's the deal with Mortal Kombat recently? On some real shit, if I ever have a game night and we're playing Mortal Kombat, you better believe we're popping in Mortal Kombat 9 for some prime time Mortal Kombat action. Mortal Kombat 9 is such a fun fighting game, and it is the 5th game that I want to see backwards compatible on the PlayStation 5. It's honestly difficult to come back to any other Mortal Kombat when this one is so solid. I mean, in my opinion, it has the best everything. It has the best character roster, it has the best game modes, it has the best campaign, it even has the best opening after hitting the fucking start button. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the other Mortal Kombat games are bad. No, not by any means. But I do think that when NetherRealm Studios revamped the Mortal Kombat formula, they damn near perfected it. And since then, the subsequent titles are simply just inferior to the original. I mean, the combat is so smooth and fluid, as well as the campaign being a blast to play through every single time, and the game has several different game modes to keep you engaged. with the test your luck combat and tag combat, which they need to bring that shit back. Unfortunately, the only way to really be able to play Mortal Kombat 9 would be on an Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3. Therefore, I would like to see it backwards compatible to make my game nights just a little bit easier. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is currently one of the best games on the PlayStation 5. If you have a PlayStation 5, do yourself a favor and play it. I promise you will not be disappointed. Unfortunately, Rift Apart is the only Ratchet & Clank game on the PlayStation 5, which is a goddamn shame, because Ratchet & Clank is a phenomenal franchise that works wonders on the PlayStation 5, and for that reason I want to see Ratchet & Clank Future Tools of Destruction backwards compatible on the PlayStation 5. Or honestly, any Ratchet & Clank released on the PlayStation 3 would be fine. Ratchet & Clank is always a blast to play. There is a reason why this franchise has been able to exist for so long. Exploring the galaxy and gunning it up on these wacky planets with these wacky weapons and these wacky characters never gets old. And I honestly wish we had more Ratchet & Clank love on the PlayStation 5. But yeah, those are some games I want to see on the PlayStation 5. All these games hold a very special place in my heart, and I'd love to be able to conveniently re-experience them on newer hardware. However, that is just my opinion, and I would love to know yours. Let me know what games you want to see backwards compatible on the PlayStation 5. Let me know in the comment section down below, but for now, I'm out.